I'm a sports physician by training. I'm Ben. My role today is very simple. I've only got one job to tell you about this. Okay, this is the Singapore Standards Code of Practice. You recognize the picture there? That's me. But what's the sport called? Anybody? Foiling. Okay, yeah, that's a short form. There are many foiling disciplines. Right? This one, you can't see the kite on top, but I'm harnessed to a kite. On top there's a kite, so this is kite foiling. Okay, so the kite uses the wind to provide the propulsion, and then the board is sitting on top of a foil. The hydrofoil is basically an underwater wing, and that gives you the lift. Okay, so this is extreme sport. It's not easy, and I acknowledge that there are risks. Okay, but it's not about avoiding risk, it's about managing the risk. Right? You manage the risk, which is what all of you here are doing with your life-saving activities. Right? Okay, like Edward just mentioned, right? He can continue to play badminton, but he's managing the risk. He's taking the precautions. People around him are trained in CPR. Right? Okay, so that's one message. Okay, and Singapore Standards does standards for various things, including safety, but also with all the different industries, manufacturing and so on. Right? And the standards are important so that we have a consistent standard to follow. Right? And all these standards are evidence-based. They are by consensus as well. And they are also designed to be achievable and practical, right? Not set the bar so high that nobody can achieve. Okay, and a lot of thought goes into it. Okay, so the Singapore Standards development, there is quite a comprehensive and rigid process to develop these standards, right? It's not easy, and we had to go through this process to come up with the Code of Practice for Sport Safety. Okay, and that journey started as far back as 2007, right? What happened was, okay, now you see all the negative news, right? That negative news was there even before 2007, so Singapore felt that we had to do something about it. And our government is good. We like to use the light touch. We don't like to impose things. Everything is by law, cannot chew gum, cannot spit. We try the light touch first. If that fails, then we become stricter. Right? If that fails, then we become stricter. So we use an escalating approach. Okay, so the lowest is no rules, like you do what you want, and we hope that you are going to be responsible. Right? Okay, most of the time that doesn't work, right? So next, you ratchet up one level. What's that? Guidelines. Okay, so you have guidelines, at least you know what we are trying to aim for. And we came up with the first guideline in 2007. I chaired the Sport Safety Committee, and we had experts from all the different disciplines, right? And also, very importantly, practitioners were in the committee as well. Okay, so the guidelines are not just theoretical. Okay, and then in 2017, we came out with the second edition, and then subsequently, I think 2022 or 2021, the third edition. So we went through 3 editions of guidelines, but unfortunately, we were still not happy with the level of practice. Like, people were still not complying. Okay, so the coroner encouraged us to bring it up one more step, to have more bite, to make it more enforceable. Okay, so we went one step up, which is the Code of Practice. Okay, so the Code of Practice is more binding. Event organizers and stakeholders are more obliged to follow the guidelines. Okay, if we still don't follow, then they are forced to take the next step, which is regulation, law. Right? And we don't want that, right? So let's hope that this time around we follow the Code of Practice. Okay, so if you look at the topics, the Code of Practice, of course, is designed to be multi-pronged, holistic, comprehensive. And you are all well aware, safety is not one thing, right? It is, you have to do many things correctly. So it's a framework kind of approach. And of course, it includes, very importantly, risk management. Okay, we cannot eliminate risk, but we can lower the risk. Okay, and let me preface this by saying I'm a sports physician, and I totally, like Edward, I totally believe in exercise. And like Prof. Teo Tiju mentioned, there are benefits to exercise, right? Countless benefits, and Jason also highlighted that. The benefits far outweigh the risks. Okay, so it is still worth exercising despite the risk, but won't it be nicer if we can lower the risk even more? Okay, so that's our aim. Okay, and then second one is CPR and AED training, right? Which is what a lot of you are involved with. Okay, then there's the water safety, sudden death, knowledge about sudden death and its prevention, like what was just covered. Okay, and then pre-participation screening, heat injuries, event medical support plan, right? That one, the onus is on the organizers and the facility owners and so on. Okay, and then the last one we don't forget is surveillance, evaluation, and follow-up to keep improving the system. Okay, so we adopted this approach. Okay, and Tiju gave a lot of very good examples, classic examples, right? And this one's yet another one. This is a Singapore context, right? Footballer Adam Swandi, he retired from football, and I consider this a positive example. Why? His heart condition was picked up, right? And he took the correct action. Unfortunately, with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, the risks escalate when you go all out. Okay, so unfortunately, you cannot play competitive soccer without going all out. It's sprint, stop, right? So it's too risky, and he made the right decision, right? So, and he's still alive. So that's the kind of outcomes you want, right? Congenital heart conditions are congenital, it's there, right? But after that, we can still manage it. Okay, so risk management. The rest of the slides are quite wordy. Just read the highlighted part. Okay, so risk management, right, is an approach. We need, especially event organizers, to do a risk management. And the risk is variable, right? Certain events are lower risk, certain events are high risk. And the whole idea is to stratify the risk level, and then you implement the measures accordingly. You don't have to use the most onerous, the most costly interventions, right, for low-risk events. Okay, this is to make it sustainable and so that you don't scare off the event organizers. Okay, and when you do risk management, the approach has to be systematic. And the good news is, with the code of practice, the format is there to follow. Okay. One worry that the industry has about this code of practice is that, alamak, now that the coroner has this code of practice as a benchmark, what if I'm caught not following the code of practice? I get into trouble, right? Okay, actually, I don't see it that way. I see this as a positive. Now, it actually protects everybody. It's the other way around. It doesn't get people into trouble, it protects everybody. Why? If you follow the code of practice, it's a checklist, like just check the box. You follow the code of practice and something happens, you're protected. You did your best, right? So it's like, see it as a positive thing, right? Of course, there's a compliance cost, right? But after understanding the code of practice and getting used to it, it becomes easier and easier. Okay, and like I said, when identifying the risks, you have to look at multiple things, right? So I won't go through the details, okay, because my secondary objective is to finish at 11:40, so Prof. Marcus can come on. Okay, so again, preventive measures in safety and training, and here, this next few slides is exactly what you're doing, CPR and AED. And I'm going to show you this series of slides because I want to assure you that we are not inventing anything new or extra thing to do. It is what you are doing already. So the code of practice incorporates all the principles that the Singapore Heart Foundation has been expounding. Right? So it's all very consistent, not really extra work. It's just complying. Okay, and another feature of this code of practice is pre-participant screening. Okay, so again, Prof. Yeo mentioned just now about screening. Screening is a spectrum, right? At one end of the spectrum, you got a very basic, simple screening. It's a low-hanging fruit, barrier-free. And then on the other hand, okay, very onerous, costly, time-consuming, uses a lot of resources. Of course, you want to be careful, you go to the other extreme, but it's not practical, right? So we use a risk stratification approach. We stratify the risk. So if you are 20 years old, you've gone through your NS checkup, you're healthy, you've exerted and nothing happened. Okay, so you're lower risk, you don't have to do the full works. Okay, but if you're 60 years old and you've got medical conditions and you want to run a marathon, like Prof. Yeo mentioned, you would probably want to see a cardiologist. So it's risk stratified. Okay, again, we have made every attempt to be pragmatic. Okay, the one end, the bottom end of the screening I mentioned, the easiest one, or let's put it this way, the minimum is a self-administered questionnaire. Don't even have to spend money to see a doctor. Right? And this is the one that when you sign up for a marathon, you go online, there's this series of questions, you answer, and then you answer, then you can go on to the next part of the registration process. Okay, so cost-free, just short effort. Okay, you heard of the PARQ, right? Okay, unfortunately, all of us got to update ourselves, which is the current PARQ that we are using. This one, which is called the Get Active Questionnaire. Okay, so PARQ is now not used. We've moved on to the Get Active Questionnaire. Okay, so go through this yourself, and because this is the minimum, right? Go through this, encourage your friends and athletes, all that, to go through this Get Active Questionnaire. Okay, a bit of bad news. This questionnaire takes longer to fill than the PARQ. Okay, but unfortunately, it is necessary. The questions are more precise, right? And because they are more precise, they filter better. So if filtration is accurate, those that need to go the next step and see a doctor really need to go and see a doctor. Those that don't need to can spare the trouble. Okay, it is to segregate the risk. Okay, and then you see a primary care doctor. Right, and then if the primary care doctor warrants that the risk is more significant, you go and see a specialist like our cardiologist colleagues here. Okay, back to the CPR and AED. You notice in the code of practice, it's mentioned many times. Okay, like I said, what you're doing is important in the different aspects of the code of practice. Okay, so we repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. So it is accessibility to CPR and AED, having the infrastructure, having the equipment, and then monitoring the outcomes, which is the response time, right? Time to the first responder, time to CPR, time to the AED, etc. Okay, and if we do it properly, it works. Okay, remember the CPR training, the early versions? I mean, even now. The introduction chapter, you talk about Chicago Airport. Okay, you all read the theory part, right? The Chicago Airport, right? Their return to spontaneous respiration rate is, remember, 70%, which is very impressive, right? 70% no. So wow, that was our goal standard. We aim for that. Okay, can you get better than 70%? You would think, wow, Singapore like 5%, 10%, and people 70%, you'll be very happy at 70%, right? But if we use a systematic approach, we look at all aspects, right? Look for the weak links, plug those weak links. We can. And who has proven that? Like Prof. Yeo mentioned, the Japanese, right, in the Tokyo Marathon, 91%. 91%. So it can be done. It's whether we want to or not. Okay, so their medics, right? It's line of sight. Most marathons, they try to save resources, so they have spotters. And then when the spotters spot somebody, they activate the medic. So got 2 steps, right? But no, everything is line of sight. So the medics, you cut 1 step, the medics respond. The medics are highly trained, right? Very well practiced. They are very properly equipped. So you saw the photo, right? Their medical bag. You see how big it is, right? Yeah, they don't wait for AED. They get there, AED is already there. Okay, you see how they look at the processes and, the Japanese take other people's idea and then improve on it further. Okay, we can do that as well. It is achievable. Okay, and use the code of practice and try and do that. Okay, so that's my last slide. The last thing is I've got good news for you. Okay, good news and bad news. Okay, this document, the bad news is that, you know how important this is, right? And it protects you, right? You just follow this and you're protected. The bad news is that you got to pay for it. You go online, you can download it from Singapore standards, but unfortunately there's a fee, right? Because Singapore standards, the process so rigorous, they have a cost to coming out with this code of practice. The good news is, today, you get it for free. So don't forget to pick up your copy outside. Okay, thank you very much.